It is Tuesday, all you mentees. That means it's time for your weekly overviews of Marvel Collected Editions coming out this week. So, let's go ahead and get started. Before going any further, I do want to thank David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these trades, collected editions, epic collections, deluxe edition. And all of these books are due out in the direct market or book market on March 28th or 29th, depending on where you get your books. We have 3 epic collections. That makes up for that 1 week we didn't have a single epic collection. Whoa, it's been a long time since I think we've had 3. And these 3 are all new. There's no reprints here. We have 3 new trades, 1 anthology, and then 1 that is called a deluxe edition, but it's also a trade paperback, which we've seen before. Actually, it was a Wolverine deluxe edition. So we're going to be taking a look at each one of these. There will be timestamps in the description of the video, so if you want to jump around or you're just interested in a couple of books, but even if you're interested in a couple of books, don't forget to smash that like button, please. That goes a long way for us here on the channel, and it's a very small thing you can do, but it means so much to us. Alright, let's go ahead and get started with the new Damage Control. Damage Control New Employee Handbook. And this one here retails for $17.99. And it collects the 5-issue miniseries. This is the original complete collection by, of course, the legendary Dwayne McDuffie. And this is printed in America. Actually, I think most of the trades, with the exception of the Epic collections, are being printed in America. And maybe not the deluxe edition, but we'll take a closer look at that here in a little bit. So Damage Control was a series, again, created in the 80s by Dwayne McDuffie in Marvel Comics. And it pretty much focuses on the idea that somebody has to go and clean up the mess that superheroes and supervillains made. So this is the new 5-issue miniseries. And the most important thing here is there's a little side story, or a little story at the end of issue number 1 called Zapped and the Mother of Invention. It is written by Charlotte Fullerton, or McDuffie. That is the widow of Dwayne McDuffie. So Adam Goldberg is the writer on the main series with Hans Rodionoff. Will Robson is actually the artist. That kind of reminds me of a mix of Todd Nauck and Nick Bradshaw. And I mentioned Dwayne Turner's widow, Charlotte, because she's carrying on this legacy for her husband. And then writing a story in here about one of the comics that he helped co-create. It's just amazing to me. She's been a big, outspoken person when it comes to his legacy and the Dwayne McDuffie awards that they give every year. So she plays a big part still in this life that he left behind. And I think that's wonderful. All right. So yes, this is the... I guess it is a organization, or rather a company, that deals with cleaning up the mess. And there's different types of departments in this company. And that's what this is. So we meet this new employee right here. His name is Gus, and he's being walked around by Bart, who's been there for a couple of years now in Damage Control. You're going to be seeing a lot of guest stars in here. I mean, a lot of guest stars. So the first issue focuses on Gus just being the delivery boy. He works in the mail department, and he has this big trouble trying to deliver this Obnoxio the Clown ice cream cake for one of the employees there that's celebrating his birthday. And there's a couple of mistakes that are made, and all hell breaks loose. And then this is what... Let me see here. This is Charlotte's side story at the end of issue number 1. So this is what it looks like, and it features some familiar characters. Then we move on to issue number 2. This is what I mean by his artwork, Will Robson's artwork, looking like Todd Nauck and Nick Bradshaw. Now we moved on to another department, because the mailroom department did not work for Gus, so now he's moving. I believe this is if it's human relations, consumer affairs. I was close. Consumer affairs, and here you'll see more guest stars, and so on. This is the fight with Thor and one big creature. And there's also the research department. So each issue throughout this 5-issue miniseries features a different department that Gus works in. And you can find out exactly where this job ends up taking Gus. And for that matter, if there's any twists and turns in here with any of these little departments. And What other little Easter eggs or cameos you're going to see besides Obnoxio the Clown? All the way in the back is where you're going to find some of the variants. Some of the other variants are in between the issues. This book has 128 pages, and again, retails for $17.99. So Adam Goldberg. Oh yeah, I guess he's the creator of the Goldbergs TV show. I've only seen a couple of episodes, so sorry. I think he is though. The new era of the Thunderbolts, this time around written by Jim Zub. And I just interviewed him this past weekend, so look on the channel. There's a lot of interviews that I'm going to be dropping. Mike Grell, Jim Starlin, Larry Hama, Peter Tomasi, Jim Zub, just to name a few. Man, really, it was a lot. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. But I got to talk to him about his Thunderbolt series. I had just finished reading it before interviewing him, and we kind of reminisce over the journey of the Thunderbolts. You know, starting off with, of course, Kurt Busiek, moving on to Fabian Niciesa's run, and then, of course, there was Fight Bolts, and then we got Niciesa for all new Thunderbolts during that new Avengers era, and then, of course, that led into the Dark Reign era because that was Warren Ellis, then Andy Diggle. And then eventually it was Jeff Parker that wrapped up that era. And then we got, oh my gosh, the Red Bolts. Daniel Wave, Red Bolts. Jim Zub actually wrote another Thunderbolt series before this one. And then we had the Thunderbolts from Dark Reign. Not Dark Reign, I'm sorry. The Devil's Reign. So, speaking of Devil's Reign, this contains a portion of Devil's Reign Omega. And I will say it's the lead into this. And if you've not read Devil's Reign, it might spoil what ends up happening towards the end of Devil's Reign for you. So maybe read that before reading this. It won't be available in omnibus format for another year, I think. In January, right? But it is available in trade or digitally. Digitally? Why would I even suggest that? Anyway, I do want to stress that fact that it does kind of spoil something for you of Devil's Reign. So, here we are with the new Thunderbolts. And who is leading the new Thunderbolts? None other than Clint Barton. That's right, Clint is coming back to the Thunderbolts. This isn't the first time we've seen him do that. He led the Thunderbolts during the Fabian Niciesa era of the Thunderbolts. But we do have a new team. We have America Chavez. We have formerly known as the Purple Girl, Persuasion. And then we have the new Power Man, approved by Luke Cage himself. Then we have this new character, Guts and Glory. Not Guts and Glory, Guts and Glory. Now, everything about this character is kind of restricted information. Even Hawkeye, who's the team leader, doesn't really get that much information about him. And yes, this team is put together by Luke Cage and a couple of others, and Clint has decided to take on the role of leader. The first task of business is taken out, and the first order of business is taking out the Taskmaster and a bunch of goons. Now, there is a couple more characters. One more character will join towards the end of the first issue, and that is, of course, Monica Rambeau, now known as Spectrum. So that's what she's calling herself. I assume she's going to be calling herself that during the Marvels movie. But this collects all 5 issues of this unfortunate mini, because I was hoping that this was the ongoing series. But it does leave a lot of room open for more things to happen. And talking to Jim Zub, he said he can't say anything about the future of Thunderbolts. So we'll just leave it at that. Here is the second mystery member. Not really. He comes from Monster Island, and his name is, what is his name? Egro, I think? Yes. But the rest of the series is all about this team getting to know each other. There's a couple of twists and turns that happen within some of the characters, a lot of secrets that come forward, and then, of course, fighting old nemesis. But it was a really interesting thing. I liked it. But I also liked Jim Zub's previous Thunderbolts that only lasted, I think, 12 issues, if I'm not mistaken. But this is the new series of Thunderbolts. There's this issue. Oh, yes, this issue where they dress up as classic characters. Well, America Chavez and the new Power Man are. Hawkeye and Persuasion are just dressing up like their old costumes. And then, of course, Guts and Glory is dressing up as Cable. But this was a fun book. I really enjoyed this, and I'm hoping to see more. All the way in the back, we have some variant covers, including the trading card covers, which I wish they would just print in some kind of collected edition format, because I love those covers. Brings back a lot of memories. Again, 128 pages. $17.99. Trials of X, Volume 7. I don't think the solicits even gave us the cover. No, we did get a cover for it. Was it always the Shadow King? Shadow King plays a big part in this. And one thing I always like to double, triple check for people is the actual content. This is what was solicited. X-Men 4, New Mutants 22 and 23, and then Wolverine 17 and 18. So X-Men 4 has this big fight with this character known as Nightmare, not the Headless Horseman. But he is plaguing some of the X-Men characters with, yes, you guessed it, nightmares. And then we get towards the tail end of Vita Ayala's run on New Mutants, which wraps up the whole Shadow King storyline, which has been kind of going for a long time. The Shadow King has kidnapped some of the New Mutants, or the younger mutants rather, not the New Mutants team. And now it's up to the team of Magic and Karma, Wolfsbane, and Moonstar and Warpath to go and get these kids back. And of course, Scout's not letting them do it by themselves. She's going to go along with them to go and get revenge and get these kids back from the Shadow King. I usually stay neutral when it comes to these stories. I try. I think people can probably guess when I'm really excited about a story. I'm like, oh, this is a great omnibus, And then but I try to stay neutral because I know a lot of people really enjoy a lot of the stories I'm talking about, even though they're not for me. I will say, with this and the Wolverine issue, I feel like longtime readers, I can see why longtime readers might be upset with the treatment of some characters. I'm not going to spoil what happens in here, but with this one, it made me go, really? That's the way that character would react? No, I don't think so. Okay, but that's all I will say about this. Let's move on to Wolverine. But, oh, no, let's not move on. Let's praise Rod Reyes' wonderful artwork, which really channels that Bill Sienkiewicz era of New Mutants. Oh my gosh, did they pick one of the most perfect artists to draw this Shadow King event. Or, not really an event, but the storyline. It's so good. Like, he is a solid artist. I would love to see him tackle more stories like this. Okay, now we can go to X-Force, or I'm sorry, Wolverine. So this reunites Wolverine with his friend Jeff Bannister and his daughter after Jeff finds something that people want. And this something came from Krakoa. And they're sending assassins after him and his daughter to get this little item back. It's a little MacGuffin. And again, this is one that I'm thinking, really? That character would do that? Alright. Sometimes, man, you read X-Men for over 3 decades, and you realize that not everything is golden, and you're not going to agree with the treatment of characters every single time. Let's look in the back here. But again, that is just my opinion. But I did want to mention those things. And normally, like I said, I stay neutral. But so many of my viewers on the Saturday stream have asked what I thought about the series of New Mutants and the treatment of a character in Wolverine. And I can see where old-time readers are coming from. And variant covers, including trading card covers, which I freaking love. The Symbiote cover right there. Joe Jusko and Greg Land and Alex Maleev. This one here has 144 pages and retails for $19.99. Yeah, all 3 of these, Uncanny Omar Talk Pretty One Day, all 3 of these trades have been printed in America so far, meaning they have the thicker glossy paper, and this has a flat finish to it. Now, let's see about this Deluxe Edition. Wolverine Weapon X Deluxe Edition. It's not the first time we've seen a trade paperback in Deluxe Edition. They've done the same thing with Wolverine Origin and the Wolverine miniseries. And usually it means that they're adding other issues to the already classic story. And it's not oversized. It is literally the same size as a trade paperback. It's not oversized or anything, just to clarify that. But this is Wolverine Weapon X Deluxe Edition. And if you've not read this, this would get the seal of approval, which I'm pretty sure most people guessed that that's where I was going to go. But no, not really. Because I saved that for another book in case that one hasn't been read. So you'll have to keep watching. So here's the Deluxe Edition of Wolverine Origin. Again, being a trade paperback. So what exactly does this collect then if it's a Deluxe Edition? Well, it does collect the classic story from Marvel Comics Presents 72 to 84, or material from those issues. It also collects Uncanny X-Men 205 in its entirety, and then that material from Wolverine 166, which was Barry Windsor-Smith revisiting this era of Wolverine, known as Weapon X. And if you're not familiar with this, I've done an overview of the Gallery Edition. It's part of the Wolverine Omnibus Volume 1, and it's just a classic story. For the longest time, we knew that Wolverine was not everything that we thought he was. We knew that he was part of an experimental project. We knew that he had a lot of secrets. We knew that he had a military background. We had no idea how old he was. And then Barry Windsor-Smith decided, with, of course, the help of Marvel, to actually shine a little light in all that dark mystery that revolved around Wolverine. And that light, of course, is the Weapon X project. The project that gave Wolverine his adamantium, and how he was able to live through that project, the hell that he had to endure through that project. And, of course, keep in mind that this all happens before the big revelation at the end of Wolverine 75, when you find out that the claws are not just adamantium. And I'll just leave it at that, in case people haven't read Wolverine 75. It's all part of the Fatal Attractions. But this is what the artwork looks like. And I'm also going to stress the fact that if you're an animal lover and you can't stomach the fact that animals get hurt or killed, even though you would be okay with a man getting adamantium bonded to his bones, to each their own, I get it. Yeah, this one does have a couple of moments like that where animals are getting hurt. So just keep that in mind if you've never read this. But this is the whole mystery as to the people behind the Weapon X project. Who is the professor? Who is Hines? But anyway, this is later on followed up in Wolverine number 48, 49, and 50. It's the Return to Weapon X, the Shiva scenario. And that can be found in Wolverine Omnibus Volume 2. But, it's a classic story for a reason. Look at those beautiful colors. And I mean, Barry Windsor-Smith did just about everything in here. Now, let's look at issue 205. Oh, but before we do, here's that little story that was added to issue 166. Again, Barry Windsor-Smith returning to the Weapon X era of Wolverine. Now, let's look at this amazing issue. I love this issue. This is one of the greatest covers and one of the greatest issues. It's just beautifully drawn and colored. This one is written by Chris Claremont, but it is Wolverine being hunted by a newly reformed, or restored Lady Deathstrike, looking a lot different than she did in the pages of Alpha Flight. And that's all because of Spiral and her workshop. And we're introduced to a couple, well, 3 in particular, people that Wolverine hacked and slashed in Uncanny X-Men 133 and 134. And they will later be known as the Reavers, but this is kind of like their first appearance of these cybernetic beings that are bonded to humans. But man, this issue is so freaking badass. Alright, all the way in the back is where you're going to find the covers. And the covers are framed around with this pattern right here, and the pattern looks like the tank that Wolverine was in during Weapon X. So these are the covers to Marvel Comics Presents, including the front and back cover here to issue number 84. There's a lot of extras. This book has 200 pages. This one retails for $29.99. And it is printed in Canada, ironically enough, because so was Wolverine. But it's got original art pages in here. I don't think that stuff has been previously collected in trades of Weapon X before. This right here is the Marvel Premiere Classic of Life Death. It's the back cover. And the house ad. The hardcovers and the trade paperback covers. Barry Windsor-Smith. In a very... I always thought it was Ron Garney when I got that issue. And this is the new X-Men Barry Windsor-Smith cover. This is from Deadpool. Because, yeah, this was during, I think it was Frank Terry's run on Deadpool. They went with classic Weapon X covers, homages, and then a little bit about the creators. But this one printed in Canada, and it's got the glossy feel right here instead of the flat matte. But that is Wolverine Weapon X. And we've come to that time of this segment where we look at all the spines together for the books coming out this week. You notice Carnage is not all filled in, the word that is Carnage, unlike Daredevil. So that's what makes it stand out. Daredevil's color's a little more crimson red than the bright red that Carnage is. But also a reminder to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Hit that like button and ring that bell for notifications. That goes a long way for us here on the channel. Let's get rid of that light. There we go. All right, let's continue this journey with the epics. Daredevil Epic Collection, Volume 6, Watch Out for Bullseye. This is a big book. This is 528 pages, retailing for $49.99. Now we have Daredevil Epic Collections 1 through 6 in their entirety. And a lot of the stories that were in here, I have never read. And so this was definitely one that I got about a month ago, and I just started reading it because a lot of the stuff that were collected in here, I've never read. This is during the Steve Gerber's run of Daredevil, and then Tony Isabella takes over. Later on, it's Marv Wolfman and Len Wein. And this collects Daredevil 108 to 132 and Marvel 2-in-1. And of course the title being Watch Out for Bullseye because this marks the first appearance of that particular character with issue 131. Actually, there's a lot of first appearances in this one. And did I mention already the page count is 528 pages? That's a lot of pages, man. So during this run, Steve Gerber's run, we have Black Widow still playing a big role. Of course, she played a big role in the last volume. So much so that she shared the title with Daredevil. So for a while, it was Daredevil guest starring Black Widow. Let me see. Like this. Co-starring the deadly Black Widow. Except for one issue that's collected in here. I thought it was done in a pretty unique way. But this also kind of ends that relationship, or sharing the title, or sharing the book with Black Widow. And that comes later on. When this, but first let's talk about this lady right here. Shauna the She-Devil shows up. That leads directly into the Marvel 2-in-1, number 3, and that is teaming the Thing up with Daredevil. Written by Steve Gerber, and this one has artwork by Sal Buscema. And we do have some fill-in art by Gene Colan, but a lot of the artwork in the Daredevil run in here is provided by Bob Brown. So now we have this whole Black Spectre Society that's trying to destroy the United States. So Daredevil teaming up with Shauna the She-Devil and of course Black Widow. And the Secret Society, they're all being led by this hooded, cloaked, mysterious creature known as the Master. This is one of his underlings known as Necra. She's the one that can control people and eventually controls Black Widow. Now, I do like one thing that they do in issue 1, I think this is 110, but in issue 111, because Black Widow is being mind-controlled by the Black Spectre Society, we have Daredevil guest starring Shauna the She-Devil instead of Black Widow. It's the only time they do that, until, of course, Black Widow leaves the book. Now, there is a big mystery as to who the Master is. It's kind of ridiculous. But this right here, this issue 111, is the first appearance of the Silver Samurai, who, of course, will go on to become Wolverine's big arch nemesis. And then the X-Men, and he's still part of Krakoa. But this is the first appearance of the Silver Samurai. And again, Shauna the She-Devil playing a big part in this because they have to go and defeat this Black Spectre Society. So without going into spoilers, I did want to showcase the artwork by Gene Colan. When it's inked by Vince Colletta, how different it looks than when Gene Colan himself finishes his own pencils. But this is one of those issues that's inked by Vince Colletta. Then we have the return of Gladiator, and we have the return of a couple of other villains. We have Man-Thing coming in with this new character named Deathstalker. He plays a role in this. For a couple of issues, we have Marlene, which is Foggy's sister, trying to take care of Foggy as he's recuperating. There's Gene Colan artwork again. We have the return of the Owl. And like I said, Black Widow plays a big role in this for a while. And then we have a whole bunch of new characters that are being introduced here. This is when Tony Isabella ends up taking over the book. So you have El Juagar, or El Jaguar, I guess, is how my wife would pronounce it, or how most people would pronounce it. We have, who is it? Dreadnought shows up, Man Killer shows up in here, and they're all being gathered together by a mysterious force to take out Daredevil and Black Widow. And then this is when Nick Fury sends Daredevil and Black Widow on a mission, and that kind of is the last thing that drives them apart. We have the first appearance of Torpedo, and by now Daredevil is rolling solo. Marv Wolfman is stepping in as not only the writer, but he's also the editor of the title during this time, and we have a new love interest during this time. Oh, actually, let's talk about this really weird character. What is the name of this character? Staron? So Staron is a character I reckon. This is the first time I've ever read this issue right here. Staron is a character that I recognize. It's issue 128 from the pages of Quasar. And I guess what Marv Wolfman wanted to do back then was introduce a sci-fi side to Daredevil, and realizing, yeah, this is not gonna work. Like, Daredevil is kind of a different character. But later on, that character does show up in the pages of Quasar, but he's known as, or calling himself Skywalker. And we're about to head into, and it's Heather Glenn is the new love interest, because what is Matt without a new love interest? I mean, we just lost Natasha, so we gotta have a new love interest. All right, then we get the first appearance of Bullseye with issue 131. It's coming in, created by Marv Wolfman and Bob Brown. I believe these are some of the last issues that Bob Brown did, now being inked by Klaus Janson, who of course will end up inking a lot of Frank Miller's and pencils, and also finishing his artwork later on. But yes, this is the assassin known as Bullseye, and he's honestly the same kind of way that he's portrayed by Frank Miller later on when he shows back up. 528 pages. This is what all the extras are back here. There's a lot of articles. The Daredevil checklist. And then you have some original artwork, including the giant-sized Daredevil right here, which reprints annual number 1. And then the Mighty Marvel Calendar, 1975. My goodness. And then original pages and a house hat back here. There's that picture of Gladiator. No Bullseye, not even on the spine. All right, let's keep going. Carnage, Epic Collection, Web of Carnage. So now we're looking at, I like that, Volume 2 of the Epic Collections, 1994 to 1997. Now, if you're keeping tabs on Epic Collections, you realize that sometimes they're 1 at most 2 years. But Carnage is a little bit different, because Carnage didn't have his own ongoing series. As a matter of fact, he just guest starred in a lot of Spider-Man issues, a lot of Venom miniseries, and then he started getting his own one-shots and his own miniseries. So this collects Amazing Spider-Man, 403 and 410, but then also just a bunch of little appearances that he made throughout the issues, including the issues with the Traveler, when he's making his own team. I mean, they're just from all over the place during this Clone Saga era of Spider-Man. And this also collects Carnage Unleashed 1 through 4, which is one of the most interesting miniseries. Carnage Mind Bomb, Sensational Spider-Man number 3, Spider-Man 67, Spectacular Spider-Man 233, Carnage, It's a Wonderful Life one-shot, and Venom on Trial, but only the issues 2 and 3, and then material from Amazing Spider-Man Summer Special, Spider-Man Summer Special, Venom Super Special. Oh, wait, no, those aren't summer specials. They're all super specials. I guess summer is a little super. Spectacular Spider-Man Super Special and Web of Spider-Man Super Special. This book has 480 pages and retails for $44.99. And these are the issues that are collected in here in whole, and that is the trial of Peter Parker. It's funny because I just talked about the trial of Mark Spector, but he's being tried for the crimes that Kane committed. And if you've never read the Clone Saga, then do yourself a favor to read it, because that would actually spoil what ends up happening, or why he's being held accountable for what Kane did. Because Kane's going around killing a bunch of villains, including one very important villain in Spider-Man's life. And Stunner wants revenge for that. Alright, Carnage Unleashed, written by the phenomenal Larry Hama, who I just got to interview this past weekend, Andrew Wildman. And as a matter of fact, I think they used Andrew Wildman's cover to issue number 2 as the cover, the direct market cover to the omnibus of was it Venom? Yeah, Ven Omnibus, Volume 1. All right. Why is this one of the most interesting miniseries? Well, because this is the beginning of the internet, I think, is the way that I feel about this series. This had to have been like 1995, maybe, when this came out. 1995, 1996. And they're making a game, because of course they are, based on the horrible things that Carnage did, known as Maximum Carnage. But somehow he's able to put himself through this game, and we do get a little bit of a background on his origin, a little bit of his origin when he was a kid. But he goes through the wonders of the internet and just manifests himself and his symbiote out of prison. I don't know if that's the way. No, okay, I can guarantee that's not the way the internet works. I don't care if you have Ethernet cables or fiber. Yeah, that doesn't work like that. But you know what? It's comic book. There's that cover. And it's issue number 3. It's comic book and it has comic book science. So sure, why the hell not? It works. So again, we get a little background more and more into how evil Cletus Cassidy was. And here's the Planet of the Symbiotes. This is the team up between Spider-Man. It's not the first time he's teamed up with Eddie Brock, Venom, but also Ben Reilly, the clone. And all 3 of them, this is a 4-issue miniseries, and it's all drawn by 4 different artists. So that's the interesting thing about the Planet of the Symbiotes. They're all done by different artists. And it's all because of they're all, I guess, super specials. But one of them is drawn by actually Derek Robertson, and they get taken to a planet of symbiotes. That's where they end up going. Hence the name, Planet of the Symbiotes. And here they have to fight a bunch of symbiotes, all 3 of them. Scarlet Spider loses his cool hoodie, so he has to walk around in just this really awesome red Spider-Man outfit. I kind of dug that. Derek Robertson drawing this issue right here, which features Carnage, and that's why it's important. And Carnage, let's just say, is bigger than life by the end of that particular miniseries. Now, we fast forward some years when we have a new Spider-Man in a new status quo. This is written by Dan Jurgens. And we have Carnage Spider-Man. Or I think it was called Carnage Spider-Man or something like that. Something ridiculous. I don't care what it was called. I'm a sucker for this look. Here, let me show you. Yes, right there. I love that look. That is such a badass picture by Mark Bagley. John Romita Jr. drew it a little bit different. But yes, the symbiote of Carnage takes over Peter Parker, or the Spider-Man, let's just leave it at that. And he is known as Spider Carnage. And this is the way that John Romita Jr. drew him, compared to the way that Mark Bagley designed him. I love that. I think it's such a killer look. Maybe it was the colors, maybe it was miscommunication, but it looked a little bit different. So again, this continues the story of Carnage and Cletus Cassidy. Sometimes Cletus will be featured without the symbiote, and then sometimes the symbiote will be featured without Cletus. So that's how this... Oh, and this ends with the trial of Venom. There's a lot of trials that are going on back here. Venom on trial. And of course, only issues 2 and 3. All the way in the back, there's really not that much. But we do have some trade paperbacks. This is the Wizard Press Collector's Library Series, Volume 1. And it's the Dark Book 94. And then we have Amazing Spider-Man Deluxe Edition Carnage Profile right there. And this is the Jackal Files. Venom Unleashed, number 1. The colors that were separated from the pencils right there. Original artwork. And trade paperback covers, including this awesome trade paperback right here from the Spider-Man Complete Ben Reilly Epic Volume 3. Not Epic Collection like these, but Epic. And that is Carnage Epic Collection, Web of Carnage. Last, but certainly not least, is Avengers, Acts of Vengeance, Epic Collection Volume 19. Now, I'm curious why they went with that title, because we've had trade paperbacks with that title, and we've kept, of course, the omnibus, 2 of them with that title. So I'm surprised they went with that title, but I guess it makes the most sense. But this really is the John Byrne era of Avengers, what we're looking at. And this is one of my most anticipated Epic collections. Yes, I've already read all the stories in here. I have the Omnis. both the Avengers by John Byrne and or I guess it would be the West Coast Avengers by John Byrne, and the Acts of Vengeance Omnis. But this serves as a gap filler. This goes right between Heavy Metal and the Crossing Line Epic Collections, because we're looking at volume 19, 1989 to 1990. And that makes me happy when gaps like that are filled. So, John Byrne's era of Avengers. Now, he started over at Avengers West Coast, and then, of course, the title got changed to West Coast Avengers. Or no, other way around. He started at West Coast Avengers, and then when he came on board, he changed the title to Avengers West Coast. That's where he started. Then he came over to the Avengers, because right now, the Avengers were just a little bit of a mess. They were getting some writers after Roger Stern that were filling in. As a matter of fact, this first issue right here, issue 304, is a fill-in issue by Danny Fingeroth. It features the Avengers versus the UFOs. So it was time that somebody came on board and just wrote the stories. And John Byrne got picked. And holy crap, John Byrne writing. I mean, this is after his relaunch of Superman. He was coming back to Marvel, and people were excited. They were like, oh, John Byrne is coming back. Now, he's not going to draw it because he's still drawing Avengers West Coast, but he's going to write it. This, by the way, is one of my favorite pictures of the Avengers. I love this. It's Captain America just asking everyone to come with him. And, of course, Avengers Assemble, right? Everybody that's been an Avenger, because we need to have a meeting. We need to have a brand new team. Tom Palmer now doing the inks. And I love the way that Tom Palmer's inks work with Paul Smith's art. Later on, of course, Paul Smith went on to draw Fantastic Four with Tom DeFalco writing those stories. But I was happy with this new team. I thought it was a really cool idea. By now, I was getting a little more into Avengers. Uncle Raj had left the book, and I felt like it needed some kind of guidance. And we do have a new team. So we have Captain America leading a new team of Avengers. It ties it closer to those Eternals that a lot of us, okay, maybe just me, just were not fond of. But oh my gosh, did I fall in love with Cersei after, well, even long after Byrne left. She stayed with the book for a long time. But now we have Quasar, we have Thor, She-Hulk, Black Panther, and Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is going to join the Avengers. But don't worry, that will come to play later on when the Eternals come back. And it's all about teaming up. Namor comes in and helps them out with the Lava Man. Now, what's cool about this first few issues is that we just had this big, giant roster of Avengers in this huge spread page that I showed. You know, and as a kid, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. They're going to utilize all the Avengers. And Byrne actually does. Everybody has a very important role to play. While we have a core team of Avengers, the rest of the Avengers are out there actually doing things, and I love that. And that's what I loved about Kurt Busiek's run. Busiek had a run of like a core team, but then there was all these backup Avengers that were helping out. Now, John Byrne, and we have the introduction of the Great Lake Avengers, which were ridiculous. And here's Cersei when they were attacking Asgard. Blastar takes over Asgard. Now, John Byrne, unfortunately, left the book. There was some disagreements between him and editorial about Avengers West Coast that led to him leaving both titles. And if you're familiar with this era, you know he leaves it like in the middle of a story, or I don't think he even finished one of the stories in Avengers in this. He just left. And it was up to Fabian Nicieza, the editors, to try to pick up the pieces where he left. Now, as a kid, like, I remember when he left Avengers West Coast, and I thought, well, this is really a weird way to end Darker Than Scarlet, because I'm not the way that I thought it was going to go. And Avengers felt the same way. Avengers felt like, oh, they're teaming up with Spider-Man. This is the Atlantis Attacks annual right there in whole. He's teaming up with Spider-Man. They're going up to space for the life of Star Fox. Nebula's involved, but I'll get to that here in a little bit. I forgot to even talk about what the Acts of Vengeance are. So the Acts of Vengeance, pretty sure I've talked about it a lot in my other videos, but just in case, Acts of Vengeance. All of Marvel's supervillains get together in one room, led by one businessman, and he proposes, hey, why don't you stop fighting the X-Men, Magneto? You should go and fight Captain America. Hey, Mandarin, you get your butt whooped by Iron Man all the time. Why don't you try your hand at Wolverine? Tiger Shark, Nobody's heard from you in a long time. Give Wolverine a visit because he's got 2 freaking titles. And it just goes on and on. So that's... Villains are pretty much fighting each other's arch nemesis. That's what this is. And the big story arc, it wasn't like Acts of Vengeance 1, 2, and 3. The big stories took place with in the pages of Avengers and Avengers West Coast. So those are collected in here. But yes, like I was saying, the Avengers get rushed with Spider-Man out to space for this big epic storyline. Nebula's involved, and John Byrne leaves the book. And it left just such a big hole in, was this really what was going to happen? Okay, I can kind of see that. Jarvis not wearing an eye patch anymore. But Fabian Nicieza steps in as the writer and does a hell of a job. I feel like Fabian was the guy to call in the 90s when, hey, so Jim Lee and everybody else just left. We need help. Can you come and write X-Men? And he did. And he does a hell of a job. And to wrap up this storyline, you know, with issue 318, I think he did exactly what he could with it. But that is what's collected in here. If you've never read this era, you're in for a hell of a treat. Yes, John Byrne leaves. It's not the first time we've seen John Byrne not agree with editorial and leave. It's just a John Byrne thing to do. But it's still some of the best Avengers issues in here. It's kind of a callback to the beginning of Roger Stern's run of Avengers. It's like the Kurt Busiek run of Avengers, where he's just putting this huge team of Avengers, trying to tie it into all of the Marvel Universe, including the Eternals, which nobody was giving a crap about at the time, and making it fun. And it was utilizing characters like Black Panther and Quasar, man, and She-Hulk. That's why this book gets my Near Mint Condition seal of approval for this round. I love this book. Yes, Weapon X, of course. I think that's understood. I'm the Uncanny Omar. You should, if you haven't read that by now, you totally should. Or buy that book for somebody that has never read it, because it is so good. Yeah, Jarvis had an eye patch at the beginning. But this to me, you throw in Paul Ryan's artwork, you throw in inks by Tom Palmer, I was in. This was great. And it's a great collection. Finally, a huge gap filler for a lot of us that have been reading Avengers and Epic collections. Maybe one day we'll have some of the stories in omnibus format, but until then, here we are. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these collections. In the comment section, let me know which ones you're going to pick up, which brings back memories, whether it's Weapon X. I don't know why I keep pointing to Damage Control. I was a big fan of the original series, and it's just crazy to see it continue, and I think it really could work as a web series or a TV show. But anyway, or if you want to see Thunderbolts continue, or if you're getting these books in Epic Collection, or if you already have most of this in omnibus format and you're hoping that Marvel one day gives all of these stories an omnibus treatment. But anyway, leave those comments down below, questions down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.